President Joe Biden seems to have misspoke when talking about Russian President Vladimir Putin to reporters. Let's watch.
Vladimir Putin been weakened by recent events?
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world. And it's not just NATO. It's not just the European Union. It's Japan. It's 40 nations.
President Biden, how we doing? President Biden.
Putin losing the war in Iraq.
You didn't even know he was in the game.
This marks the second time this week the president mixed up the names of Ukraine and Iraq. This comes after a new poll shows Biden garnering a whopping 60% disapproval rate, a job disapproval rate, with 31% approving the job he's doing in the White House. Not a good time.
Right.
But when has it been a good time in recent history for Joe Biden?
This particular gaffe, reminds me of the very similar mistake George Bush made recently, or within the last year or two, when talking about the Ukraine war. Let's play it.
The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia, and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, too. Anyway, 75.
Right, and I think the takeaway is that both Bush and Biden were so used to thinking about the losing in the U.S., things not going well in Iraq, the criticism that this war was not advisable and was a disaster, and even though they've never, I don't know that they've acknowledged those criticisms to any appreciable extent, but have actually internalized them because they made a slip of the tongue acknowledging them. Right.
Well, it's interesting that in the George Bush clip, he attributes his verbal slip to his age being 75. Joe Biden is obviously considerably older than Bush, despite ascending to the presidency much later than Bush did. And, this is the question on many Americans' minds, that even folks who personally like Joe Biden or even think that he's done as good a job as he could do, given the circumstances, simply think that he's too old to be president. And while I certainly know it's the case that people slip up, we all do it. You and I sit here and do it every day, reading the teleprompter, et cetera. You exchange words for each other. It's not that big a deal. At a certain point, the optics start to look bad for Joe Biden when you read all of his gaffes,
right, and you
start to measure how frequently the gaffes are coming and ask yourself questions about whether or not there could be geopolitical implications depending on the timing and substance of the gaffes.
Well, and really, beyond the gaffe itself, the point he's trying to make was wrong. Is Russia clearly losing the war in Ukraine? I guess they're losing. Ukraine's losing. We're all losing. Everyone's losing. People are dying. It's going on. You're right. Russia has not succeeded in conquering the entire country. I don't know if that's really what they've set out to do. They've certainly made a spectacular show of force. They've crippled key Ukrainian infrastructure. They've occupied Ukrainian cities, and they have many more military tools to put at their disposal, frankly, than the Ukrainians do if this continues on. I mean, Ukraine could be down to the last man before Russia has to seriously worry. Now, I won't say there's been no blowback for Putin or for Russia. Obviously, this Wagner group, described as a coup or a show of dislike of Putin, obviously got resolved, but has maybe shown that there's some weakness in the regime. I'm not going to pretend this has all gone terrifically or any stretch of the imagination for Russia. But I think it's certainly naive to say, well, yeah, he's losing, so he's going to lose soon, so we don't need to do anything to facilitate a diplomatic resolution to this conflict. That's what I'm afraid I'm hearing. Because they're just going to lose, that sounds like, yeah, we're going to keep sending Ukraine money and resources and everything because, Russia's losing and then they'll lose, which is not what's going to happen.
Given the nuclear realities of the situation, this is like, I could get into a fight with a kitten and it could scratch me and it could hurt. I don't love cats for that very reason. They've got a lot of pointy bits. But the idea that if push came to shove, that I couldn't physically overpower a cat is absurd, right? And so the question is, am I willing to pull that trigger? Am I willing to escalate the situation in a way that rids me of my problem, that keeps me safe ultimately? And that is the problem that we've been we've been confronted with since the beginning of this conflict. In what person's imagination is Ukraine going to defeat Russia meaningfully when they have the ultimate trump card in their nuclear capacity? And is our continued support of Ukraine in bolstering its ability to fight with Russia beyond what its independent capacity could be, escalating the conflict to the point where the proxy war becomes a war between two actual nuclear powers, and Russia potentially feels more empowered to go ahead and use that ultimate trump card? That is the fundamental danger here. So yes, the discussion of who's winning and who's not winning ultimately misses the point. Unless you believe for some reason that Ukraine, with its significantly less capable military infrastructure, can beat Russia, then what are we even talking about here? It's just a matter of time.
Right, a matter of time in which, I'm sorry, but Ukraine is being slowly destroyed. We had the dam.
It's horrible. It's horrible what's happening to people.
The fallout of that is going to be felt for a generation.
Now, the counter argument is that you want the diplomacy to be happening under conditions that are more advantageous to Ukraine and more harmful to Russia. And there have been various points in the war during which negotiators have said this is a good time for Ukraine to negotiate. It's in a better footing to negotiate. And at various points, the U.S. or UK have scuttled those kinds of negotiations in a way that ultimately is likely to be in the detriment of Ukraine, hoping that there's going to be a point down the line where some kind of military victory or short-term victory is perceived as advantaging Ukraine in a negotiation context. And that is just such a dangerous game of roulette that is being played.
It seems relentlessly short-sighted. I mean, it obligates us to keep giving funding that I don't know how willing the American people are, or at least the Republican electorate is, to continue. But it doesn't do any favors for either the Ukrainian people or the Russian people.
Right. Well, this issue, of course, is one that is front of mind for people as they look toward the election season. So both the substance of Joe Biden's gaffe and the gaffe itself are going to be front and center. People are agitating for someone other than Joe Biden to run. We've seen the polls who discuss them ad nauseum. We know that the Democratic Party is very forceful and unrepentant in its choice to shut down debates. So we'll continue to follow this story and to see whether or not there's any cracks that emerge in the Democratic Party's defense of Joe Biden.
Well, that does it for us for today. Tomorrow on Rising, we will update you on any new developments with the Hunter Biden whistleblower saga, the Donald Trump's documents case, and everything else.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. For those of you who prefer to listen while you're on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.